Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Yvette Todd. I'm one of several account managers here at Socius. I wanted to thank everyone for attending today and taking time out of your busy schedules. Today's webinar is on Blue Moon's new module, credit card payments, powered by Mercury. Blue Moon Industries has teamed up with Mercury Payment Systems to create a strong, cost-effective credit card processing solution for the Dynamics GP solution. Just so you know, we will be recording today's session if you wish to review it in the future, or if you know of others that may have liked to attend today's presentation but couldn't. You can direct them to the recorded version on our website. We currently have everyone on mute for this portion of the webinar, and at the end we'll open it up for questions. However, feel free to type in your questions in the questions box area on your screen, and we'll be sure to answer your questions at the end. With that, let me introduce you to Andrea Smiley. Andrea is with Blue Moon Industries. They have been developing innovative business solutions for the Dynamics GP solution since 1994. Andrea is a software products consultant. Her focus is doing support, SQA, and implementations. We're so lucky to have her do the presentation for us today. Andrea, I'll turn it over to you to take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Yvette. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. So as Yvette said, we are going to show you today our new product, credit card payments powered by Mercury Payment Systems. Credit card payments is going to add credit card processing to your sales order processing and cash receipts modules within Great Plains. All of the transactions will be processed by Mercury Payment Systems without a third-party gateway. The elimination of the third-party gateway often will mean that you'll have reduced credit card fees as well. So what I'd like to do is first show you and talk to you about the setup of credit card payments and some of the features and functionality that will be added to your system with this new product. So I'm going to go ahead and open our credit card payment setup window. So once you sign up, you will get your own merchant ID from Mercury, which we'll enter in this merchant ID field. We have a few setup options that will help drive how the transactions flow throughout the system and also allow you to specify batches and holds as transactions go through the process. If you're familiar and use credit cards today, any kind of cash receipts processing along with credit cards, you do need to have your credit card transactions assigned to a credit card name. So you can set up a default one in our setup window. As we're going through transactions, it's possible when you either do a pre-authorization or a capture that the transaction may fail. In those cases, you could have those transactions moved to a batch, a specific batch, to make it easier for you to find those transactions that are failed and prevent any further processing. So you would specify the batch ID here, and that will be for both sales transaction entry and cash receipts. So we have some options here that when you have the ability to capture a pre-authorization. Typically, that's going to happen on the order. But you may be in an environment where you don't use orders and you strictly use invoice types. So you'll be able to allow for invoice pre-authorization and then also have that pre-authorization on the orders capture when you transfer to invoice, capture when any open pre-authorizations on a batch post. We have a credit card transaction window that you can have auto-open when you enter your transactions. And we have a feature here, do not disable the credit card number on customer maintenance. As you may know, on the options window of customer card, there is a field for the credit card number. In order to remain PA-DSS compliant, that information should not be stored and cannot be stored within your Great Plains system. So we will disable that field within Great Plains. We will provide you with the option to not disable that as well. In regards to the transferring process, our credit card payments will also integrate with Blue Moon's SAP Auto Invoice product and do the capture of the pre-authorizations on the transfer or in the posting. In today's world, unfortunately, we have to be focused on fraud and people stealing people's credit card numbers. So there are 3 options that you can set up to help minimize the capture of credit cards if you don't have the appropriate information. You can require an address match, require a zip code match, and also require the CVV match. You can choose 1, 2, or all 3 of these, or none of these. We have a capture tolerance. So you may process your order for $5, for instance. But once you fulfill the order, you may have additional charges, maybe for freight, miscellaneous, etc., and you won't know those until once you process the order. You can specify a capture tolerance of how much more of the original capture do you want to capture. So we're going to go ahead and, for demo purposes, we're going to just set this to 5%. You also can set the system up to allow a pre-authorization for greater than remaining. So if you know you're going to have freight, miscellaneous, or other types of charges greater than what the initial order is, but you don't know that until later, you can actually pre-authorize for an amount greater. So you can, again, specify that as a percentage. I'm going to go over here to transaction, and you'll be able to set up on a user-by-user basis what processes within credit card payments the user will be able to do. You can search for this based on class and user ID, and you also can set up a default. So we can specify whether or not the user has the ability to pre-authorize, capture, process a sale, process a return, process a void, or do voice authorization. Holds, like we talked about in regards to the failed batch ID, you also can put the transaction on a hold if it fails during the pre-auth, the capture, a void, a return, a voice failure, or if they're over tolerance. So there's 2 different ways that you can easily then search for documents that had a failure. You can put them to a batch, and or you can assign a credit hold. And all of these holds are set up in the standard sales order processing hold setup window. And then our advanced setup just allows you to set a process that will automatically do the settlement in the evening. So let's just keep note that we do have this require CVV match, and we'll see that during the transaction processing. I'll enter an incorrect CVV. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter an order. And because we're in a demo state, our orders have to stay under a certain amount of dollars for just the processing. So you'll notice that my transactions are going to be very low in dollar volume. So I'm going to go ahead and enter an order for Adam Park. And we're going to order some cords. Okay. So we have $3. So I can go up to additional credit card payments. This is the window that I talked about earlier. You can have this auto open. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and pre-authorize their order for $3. So I'm going to go ahead and click on pre-auth, and I'm going to click here on new card. So I'm going to go ahead and enter their card number, put in their expiration date, and currently the CVV code that I have to use is 123, but I'm going to go ahead and put in 125, and I'm going to go ahead and put in their zip code. So I'm going to go ahead and process. So this is processed, and it now tells us that the transaction was reversed due to the following security settings. Our CVV code does not match. So in this instance, it did attempt to go and do the pre-authorization, but because within our setups we have the options that we require a CVV match, as a tongue twister, it's gone ahead and it's reversed that pre-authorization. So this card failed, so you would then contact, if you're on the phone with your customer, you would just want to re-verify that number. Then we can go ahead and retry that. So I'm going to go ahead and do new card again, and I'll put in the correct information. And I'm going to go ahead and hit process. So now that has gone ahead and pre-authorized. So what I can also do now at this point is I can assign this card to this customer and make this their default card. So it would then store this token for this customer for future use with that token information stored and that CVV stored within that token. You won't be able to see that information because due to all the PIA CSS compliance, that's not something you could see as a user within Great Plains, but it will be encrypted in the token that you save on this customer. We also have the ability, if we wanted to specify that this card was specific to an address ID, we can also then assign it to one of their addresses and make that their address ID default card for future use. Okay. So we've gone ahead and we've pre-authorized $3. Well, now we're getting ready to ship this. And maybe we actually shipped 4. And maybe we also have some freight of $1. So when we attempt to capture this, when we transfer this, it's going to want to capture $5.07. So we are set up to capture at the transfer, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer this to invoice. We can see here that it's processing the credit card, and we're going to get the standard Great Plains transfer log. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and open this window. So we can see a couple of things have happened with this order. The invoice is now in a batch ID called CC fails. And that's because we were set to capture, we pre-authorized $3. We attempted to capture $5.07, but we had a tolerance, so we are over that tolerance. So what has also happened is if we go to hold, we can see here that my tolerance hold has been applied to this order. So there's different ways now that you can research to determine why this was on hold simply by this tolerance that we know it was over the tolerance. You also, at this point, if you wanted to, could go and try and capture the $1.92 with either the same card or a new card. And you'll be able to see on the transaction all of the activity that has happened. We can see the original capture and void, the capture of $3.15. So once you post this invoice, $1.92 will remain on their account. You also, if you wanted to, you could, at this point, you could void the payment. You can, until it's settled, the transaction can be voided. Once it's been settled, you would process a return. Credit card payments can also be used during the cash receipts entry. You may not be in an environment where you capture, or you could have some customers who have terms with you that they have net terms of 30, but later on they call you and they do want to pay with a credit card. In that case, you would use our cash receipts, put your transaction in the batch like you would do today, select your customer, and put in the amount of your payment. You can go to Additional Credit Card Payment, and this will open our credit card payment window. If I had chosen credit card first before I put in the amount, this window would automatically open. So I can go ahead and put in new card, enter my card number, my expiration date, my CVV, and my zip code. And this will go out and it will capture the $5. And we can see here that the transaction has been approved. And then we'll also be able to see here at the bottom the credit card transactions. At this point, you would go to apply just like you do today within cash receipts. We'll go ahead and save that. We do have an inquiry window in which you will be able to see the activity associated with your customer. So you'll be able to see all the different transactions that have processed for this customer with credit card activity. You'll be able to filter based on credit card ending information, the user, the transaction type. You can then also sort it by the document number, the transaction date, and the master number. And then we also have a credit card inquiry window where you can do a lookup and see what cards you do have for your customer on file. There is also a website, not to get into the details of Mercury, but in case some of you are thinking, there is also, as you will have a website from Mercury that is specific for you, that you will be able to go and view the activity on your account and the pending transactions and whether or not they've hit your account as well. To just step back a little bit and go back to the customer card window, to just go to the options window to discuss the fact, the setup option we had earlier, you can see here that we've disabled the credit card number field. So the features of credit card payments at your C is their seamless integration with Microsoft Dynamics GP sales order processing and cash receipts. We do have support for pre-authorization both on the order and the invoice. You can pre-authorize. You can do adjustments, returns, voids, and voice authorization. We have fraud setup options to verify the address, the zip code, and the CVV code. You actually can store multiple credit cards per customer and associate a credit card per customer location. You could also process multiple transactions against one sales order invoice. The tokenization allows your pre-authorization to capture your funds during fulfillment. There's complete detailed activity logging, and we will integrate with our Stop Auto Invoice product, and it is PA-DSS certified. So at this point of that, if you've got any questions that you've had sent to you, if you want to go ahead and ask those, or go ahead and open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Andrea. At this time, we'll begin the Q&A portion of today's session. If you have a question, you could either click on the raised hand button on the right-hand side of your computer screen, and I'll unmute you so you can ask your question. Or if you prefer, feel free to type your questions in the questions box area on your screen.